Let's talk about the summer of 2018. Do you remember it? It was way more than just a heat wave, wasn't it? It was like a nationwide stress test. And in this explainer, we're going to dig into how that scorcher really exposed some serious cracks in the UK's infrastructure, its economy, and even in its ability to protect its own people.
You know, what really made 2018 so extraordinary was the sheer whiplash of it all. Because just before all that relentless sun showed up, the UK was completely frozen solid by the infamous beast from the east. I mean, talk about a year of true climactic extremes.
Yeah, we went from severe snow to scorching, record-breaking heat in just a matter of months. But honestly, it was the scorch that really put the nation to the test. And that's what we're going to focus on here, what that intense heat showed us about where the UK is most vulnerable.
Okay, so what was going on here scientifically? How does a country that's, famous for being mild and kind of damp suddenly get locked in an oven for weeks on end? Well, the answer lies in a huge shift way, way up in the atmosphere.
The key player in all of this is something called the jet stream. Now, you can think of it like a fast-moving river of air that pretty much dictates our weather. Normally, it keeps things moving along, but in 2018, it did something else entirely.
And the process was, believe it or not, deceptively simple. First, that jet stream shifted way up north of the UK. That basically opened the door for a massive high-pressure system to just park itself right on top of the country. This created what we call a heat dome. It's like putting a giant lid on, trapping all the warm air and blocking any rain for weeks.
So, the result of that heat dome? A single number tells a big part of the story. 54. That's how many days in a row some parts of the UK went without a single drop of rain. It was a massive, widespread drought.
And as that drought got worse, the heat just kept building and building. It finally peaked at a staggering 38.7 degrees Celsius in Cambridge. To put that in perspective, that's over 101 degrees Fahrenheit.
Now, that wasn't just a really hot day. Nope. That was a brand new all-time temperature record for the entire United Kingdom. It completely smashed the old record from 2003, a truly historic and honestly pretty worrying milestone. But look, this extreme weather was so much more than just a number on a thermometer. It had a severe, very real cost for people, for wildlife, and for the environment right across the country. Tragically, the heat wave is linked to about 1,000 extra deaths. These were mainly from things like sunstroke and dehydration, and it was the elderly who were most vulnerable, which is just a stark, heartbreaking reminder of the direct human cost of this kind of heat.
In the natural world, it was under immense stress, too. The soil became baked so hard that animals like hedgehogs literally couldn't dig for worms to eat, and that disruption just rippled all the way up the food chain. We saw insect populations like caterpillars just plummet.
All that dry vegetation basically created a tinderbox, just waiting for a spark. And we saw what happened with the Saddleworth Moor fire, a really dramatic example. It raged for over 3 weeks and burned through 7 square miles. Just a devastating environmental disaster, all fueled by the heat.
And, that strain didn't stop with the natural world. It rippled right out into our man-made one. The country's most essential systems, I'm talking about the stuff we all rely on every single day, they were pushed right to their breaking point.
Let's be honest, the UK's infrastructure just wasn't built for this kind of intense heat. We saw steel railway lines actually warping and buckling, which led to cancellations all over the country. And even the roads couldn't handle it. Tarmac surfaces literally started to melt.
I know, it sounds totally surreal, but get this. There was a report at the time that really makes it sink in. Fire crews actually had to be called out to rescue a man because his foot got stuck in a melted road. A bizarre, but a very, very real consequence of the heat.
And, as you can imagine, all of this chaos came with a massive price tag. The government estimated that it was costing the economy about £200 million a day, mostly from lost productivity and all the disruption to transport. But the story isn't all bad news. In a bit of a surprising twist, some parts of the economy actually did really well.
It was almost like a tale of two economies, really. On one hand, you had wheat farmers seeing their yields drop by 15%, but on the other hand, retailers couldn't keep things like barbecues and bottled water on the shelves. And of course, with guaranteed sunshine day after day, tourism absolutely boomed.
All right, so in the face of this whole crisis, how did the UK actually respond? What did they do to try and cope with a system that was clearly at its breaking point?
While the official response came from a few different angles,
Hosepipe bans were put in place pretty quickly to try and conserve water. The Met Office was busy giving advice to places like schools and hospitals, and some funding was even freed up to get fans into institutions to help people stay cool.
When you look back, the big takeaway is crystal clear. That one year, 2018, from the beast from the east all the way to the scorch, it was a powerful and very costly lesson in just how vulnerable the UK really is to extreme weather.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty critical question, doesn't it? Because we know another extreme summer isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So the only real question left is, are we any more prepared for it now than we were back then?